There are about 13 million hearing impaired people in this country. 2 million are classified deaf. That is, they can't hear ordinary speech, and they communicate best in their own language, sign language. Alexander Graham Bell's wife was deaf, and both of his parents went deaf. His work as a teacher of the deaf led to the invention of the telephone. So the Bell system has always had a special interest in helping the handicapped to communicate. Now some Bell Laboratory scientists are experimenting with a video technique that would let hearing impaired people communicate using sign language over regular telephone lines. Sue Kurzrock spoke to Vivien Tartter and Ken Knowlton, the scientists involved in this experiment.
What we plan to do is to have the people who are doing signing wear gloves, and which have very highly reflective tape, retroreflective tape on the ends and some other places. If you had a bright light at your camera and no other lights, you would see these as very bright spots. Our transmitting device will detect the position of these spots in the picture and transmit just their locations. It would not take a complete picture of me and send that whole picture. It would just find the spots and tell the receiving device where in the picture to recreate those spots of light.
How are people able to make sense of the dots?
If you see a still picture of this, you probably wouldn't. You wouldn't know which spot was which. You wouldn't know, for example, if you saw this particular picture, you probably wouldn't know which was the thumb. But when you see a sequence of these in motion, somehow we do perceive that that is a hand, and furthermore that that's the thumb and this is the index finger, and we see the whole motion, the whole human motion.
How long does it take for sign language users to become accustomed to communicating this way?
Only a few minutes. You can just sit down and immediately start doing things like this, and people will understand what you're doing, where your hands are, and what position they're in, and what they're doing.
At this point, what we've done is we've shown that deaf people can communicate with each other when what all they view are 27 spots placed on their hands and face. The research that has to be done is to convert those 27 spots into a signal that goes over the telephone line and find out how precise we have to make that signal.
Why can't we use a full picture to communicate sign language?
Because the full picture takes much, much more information and would take probably about the equivalent of 100 telephone lines to transmit. And that would mean a whole new circuitry and a huge amount more expense than if we could go over the normal telephone system. So we have to condense the information in the full picture, which is what our technique does.
Is Bell Labs alone on research on video techniques for the deaf?
There are some others that have to do with speech reading or lip reading that I know of.
Yes, Norman Erber at Central Institute for the Deaf has been pursuing a project where he's hoping to get lip information over the telephone, and he'll probably be working with us eventually.
And also here at Bell Labs, George Sperling has done some work in which he has simply used a small part of the television picture, smaller and smaller, trying to see at what point it becomes unintelligible, the signing.
How are you testing this technique now at the labs?
Okay, there are 4 deaf people and 1 hearing person who's fluent in sign who have been helping us with this project, who work at the labs. They are Cynthia Jeffrey, Carol Farino, Mike Androsco, and Jean Marshall are the people who have hearing problems, and Jay Jackson has been